Hey y'all, it's your girly man Maui Doster back with another episode of my so-called disabled life. And the world has been so wild. Like if you sometimes I wonder, like, is 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 the dumpster fire of the world thinking I'm not dumpster firing enough? Like that it wants to add additional dumpster fire things on top of it. And it's just so wild. And in addition to that, the weather in New York today, it was like, all right, I'm gonna remind y'all what November looks like because the cold and the wind and the storms came out of nowhere and it shook all of us and it made us all it reminded us that like you guys are in the Northeast. So yes, it's gonna get cold. It's balls cold here. So yeah, and I don't know if that has anything to do with solar storms either. I was talking to my husband earlier about if solar storms affect the storms on Earth. And apparently they do. And I read a whole article about what happened in the 1800s, the wild solar storm that affected earthquakes and tornadoes and weather and all that stuff. So it was wild. It's wild to tell y'all. So I just had to share that because I love science and I love space and I love Earth and universe and stuff like that. Anyway, so today I'm so excited. I mean, I'm always excited to introduce folks because I know so many cool people. And here's another cool person for y'all to get to know, Gail Fuller. Gail Fuller is the Chief of Executive Affairs for the Disability and Philanthropy Forum. As a Black woman with a non-apparent disability, her disability journey has shaped how she sees her identities, race, gender, and disability. She has written about her journey in her blog, Black and Disabled. I have lived in the shadows. Y'all better check that out. With 37 years of experience, Gail's career has spanned several industries, including nonprofit, corporate, publishing, sports, and philanthropy. Check you out, girl. Gail holds a Master's of Business Administration from Nova University and a Bachelor's of Arts in Speech Communication from Wake Forest University. And I'm so happy to have her with us. Hey,
Thank
Gail.
you. Hey, thank you. Thank you. When you brought up weather, I had to double check our forecast. I'm in Florida, just outside of Orlando, because the low this morning was like 36, 37. So I
Oof.
literally just looked at my phone and it is right now 53, but feels like 47.
Mm.
Floridians, yeah. I'm a
Mm.
transplant, but yeah, I'm a little cold right now.
No, I believe you. I was in Florida last December, and I was like, "Ooh, this weather is nice." And then one of the days it just went like just a teeny bit cold, and I was like, "What? This is not what I signed up for." But it was December, so I was used to cold, but not in Florida. So,
Yeah.
so thank you so much for being with me tonight. So I start off my interviews with the same for everyone because I
Mhm.
want to introduce you to everybody. So, who is Gail, and why does she do what she does?
Wow. Well, Gail is a Black woman with a non-apparent disability that comes from a long line of ancestors that have always fought for justice. That's ingrained in me. My day job is, as you said, Chief of External Affairs, working for the Disability and Philanthropy Forum, which is a passion for me. And I would also say that I am complicated. And by I mean complicated is that we have to be able to embrace all sides of us and recognize those. And I think that's important. Too often we try to be something that we're not in the places that sometimes we're not welcome. And so that's a little who I am. I should also say, too, I am a Gemini. And my fellow Gemini, who was actually born on June 7th, too, is Prince. So, I feel like there's some great aura there. But yeah, I'm really happy to be
Heck
here.
yeah. No, well, girl, I'm a Taurus with Scorpio rising. And when people are like, wait, you're a Taurus with Scorpio rising? Is that why you're extra spicy sometimes? I'm like, heck yeah. I got them ghost peppers in my pocket in case I need to whip them out at any time. And so I love that you mentioned being a Gemini. I love astrology too. Astrology and astronomy. I have opened them up. That's what's up. So I love that you mentioned that you do this because you come from a long line of people who were doing it, but you also recognize that your non apparent disability comes from the trauma and the struggle. And a lot of folks don't even think about that. And I've read so much about generational trauma and that passing down sicknesses and just how dismantling and debilitating and destructive. Oh, 3Ds, oof, all together in our lives. And sometimes I mean, because some folks are all, like, oh well, you got your disability from God. It's a lesson. It's to teach you something. But also, I'm kind of like, is it though? Is that a little ableist? I don't know. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I think that's so both beautiful and also heartbreaking all at the same time that we're having these things passed down and then they're passed down in the form of chronic illnesses and all that. I know I just said a whole bunch, but definitely speak
Yeah.
on it because that's beautiful.
One of the things that, if you really think about it, if you go back to our ancestors who were slaves, um, the feeling was that, and particularly I can speak, more so as a Black woman, I think some of those stereotypes still happen, that we're so strong and we don't break. And it's been really fascinating. And what I learned, particularly from my father, my mother, and my grandmother, was that as you always respect history, understand history, but also look at the repercussions from history. Like you said, if you look at the pain and things that they went through, both physically and mentally, and where we are now, it is not surprising, but I'm hoping that more people feel comfortable talking about their disability. You had mentioned a blog that I wrote. I had I hid in the shadows for such a long time because I was fearful, and I was definitely fearful to talk about my mental health. And I'm actually starting to embrace that more and more. And I would say that one of the things when you look at and I always tell people respect history, because sometimes you might feel like you're the only one who's gone through something. Not the case. I mean, we can look right now of the impact on everything right now, just on Black women alone. There are numbers to prove it. That I think it's really important to consider. So.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate that you brought that up because there are so many studies. Sorry, I don't know if y'all can hear the sirens or if y'all can hear the sirens. Sorry. Problem New York, my bad. My bad. Sorry.
Well, I have a dog. Right now he's quiet, so don't be surprised.
Y'all gonna be hearing barking and sirens throughout this podcast. So it's like the blackest thing ever. Oh my God. Sorry, y'all. My bad. No,
Well,
I
it's
appreciate that.
virtual. We're all used to it now. So.
Shoot, I hope y'all used to it. Yeah, no, I think back on like one of my uncles. He's my great uncle because he's my grandfather's brother. He
Mhm.
traced on my mom's side of the family, our side of the family, back to West Africa, but that's as far as he could get it. But
Oh,
that's
that's
the side of the
incredible.
family, and it's so amazing. He was curious, and he was like, let me do some tippity tapping. And the wild thing is, he is as light as I am, but both his
Mhm.
parents are Black.
Hmm.
And I'm my shade, but my father's Palestinian as well, which is the
Uh-huh.
shade brown. So it's just like and so he got that. He was like, "Girl, you Black, shut up." And I was like, "Okay, thank you, Uncle Billy, I appreciate it." Because folks are always just like, "Shut your high yellow ass up," and I'm like, "Well, why?" As
You
Beyonce
know,
says, "From dark brown to fluorescent beige, bitch, I'm Black." So
well, but I think that's another thing when you talk about history, when you talk about, how people identify and who they are. Um, my dad's grandmother was a white woman, and then his dad was had indigenous in him. And I wish my father was alive right now because I tell you where that came from. And at this moment, as we're talking, I can't remember. But it also goes back, what you're saying too, goes back to the brown paper bag test. My father was light skinned. My mother was very dark, you know. And I think of the harmful things that were said to her, you know, like tar baby, you know, and I I wish it's almost like the we set these things up and we judge people on how they look or what people think they are. And we all know that, you know, race is a construct, but that has so many damaging effects on people and how we really relate to one another, you know. And I think we all at times have some type of bias, you know, either
Mhm.
conscious or unconscious. So,
No,
but yeah,
absolutely.
I'm glad you can trace your history back like that.
Yeah, no, I loved it so much, and it was, and I wish, because now he's in his 80s and he's suffering from dementia, so he doesn't even remember trying to trace us back. But he couldn't finish the rest of the research to see which tribe. But because I'm, incredibly curious, I'm like, well, let me read some more things about it, and I've
Mhm.
been reading this book called "Captives as Commodities," and
Oh,
how the black body was basically used to make money, but they didn't care about the rest of the body. And
mhm.
it was so disposable because they were just using it. Basically, they saw these strong, you know, young black bodies, and I'm like, okay, we're just gonna, you guys are our cash cows now. But I think all of that happening really did have an effect on our entire biology, because that's where the most autoimmune disorders come from on my mom's side of the family, which is mostly black, a little bit of Blackfoot, and probably some white because there was a ton of rapes going on at the time. So there's all that there as well. So I just constantly think about, oh gosh, well, that's where my lupus comes from. That's where my
Mhm.
rheumatoid arthritis comes from. That's where my heart stuff comes from. But then on my dad's side, um, there's a lot of folks who have diabetes, who he passed away from a heart attack at 40 because he was stressed to hell and had had 3 marriages and 4 kids and a bunch of jobs and couldn't survive in the quote American dream. Um,
Right.
so I constantly think about, I'm in all these different groups where we talk about sort of life and social constructs and things put in our way to like debilitate us. What are your thoughts on, because I honestly do think that there are certain things put in place to keep us sick on purpose so that we can't fight in some of these struggles. And if we're depleted, if we have autoimmune disorders, if we don't have the energy and we're busy with medication and taking care of ourselves and, self care and wellness, then we might not have time to fight in the revolution and the struggle. So, what are your thoughts on that kind of? And I don't think there's like, chemtrails in the air and nothing like that. But if you exhaust the immune system and the body and continually stress it, studies show that you will develop a sickness if you put people in food deserts, if you have them working 80 hours a week, if you have them stressed and don't have childcare. That will cause an immune response. And so it doesn't have to be chemtrails in the sky. It could just be that kind of stress. So what are your thoughts on like the world basically causing these autoimmune disorders in our bodies to like wreak havoc so that we can't do any of the things?
Before I answer that, I actually want to go back to when you were talking because I just realized we have a lot in common because you had mentioned your uncle and dementia. Well, that's what my father had during the last 4 years that I was his caregiver. He also was tracing our family history. And the one thing I always regret is not recording what he had gotten to. And so I wish you a lot of luck in tracing more of what you're doing. Oh
Thank
gosh,
you. Thank you.
when it comes to wow, almost debilitating us even more, um, I think there is both environmental factors and those human factors of just who people are and the ableism and the stereotype. Because if you remember what I was saying before, it's like I was afraid to disclose my disability because the first time I ever disclosed it, it was like, what is wrong with you? And so when you hold that in and when you hold that stress in, oh my gosh, stress can do so much to people, you know? And then you think of the, am I good enough? You know? And that type of ableism takes a mental and physical toll that people don't really consider. And so I'm so glad you're asking this question. And also too, when you look at the, you know, the stats of people when it comes to disability and all of the different factors, both apparent and non-apparent. You know, I used to always say when I worked in New York and for a foundation there, and it was, and some of our work was around sustainability and climate change was actually our biggest. It would always be interesting in talking to someone and having to explain, you know, the connection to climate and disability, you know. And in New York, to me, it was always easy because one of the things you could talk about is the Bronx and the increase of people, children with asthma, you know. You know, it wasn't inherited. That was environmental. And if, you know, one of the things I wish that more organizations would look at those type of connections. Because I find, and I don't know about you, when I'm having a moment or if I'm having tremors or whatever, I just, I need to try to find my own self-care. But sometimes it's hard because in the back of your mind, it says something else. I had shared something recently with someone about how I had always misinterpreted this poem our father taught us. There were 6 of us, and it anonymous, but it was, if a task is once begun, never leave it till it's done. Be the labor great or small, do it well or not at all. Literally, until probably about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I had taken that to heart. That meant you had to keep pushing, you had to do it, you know. And I've started to realize that, oh no, you have to step back. You have to practice that self-care and find those different support systems. You know, if there's other people to engage with, if there is therapy, you know, I'm a big, strong believer, you know, and, you know, psychiatry, you know, psychology, psychiatry, and having someone there that can help and support you. And we live in a system that's not always accessible for everyone, you know, which I think is it's another factor to that. And yeah, your question kind of, it hit home because I've seen so many people, including myself, experience this. I also remember like, and also asking for accommodations, you know, and it seems like, well, do you really need that accommodation or what is it for? And I use that to say that sometimes people don't actually understand or like, you know, like, man, do they really have a disability? You know, or you talk about mental health. I was talking to someone about mental health and I was like, you know, it's a disability, you know, it's in the ADA. And they're like, and it was that moment. I think they thought like, I actually do have a disability, you know? And I also think that stereotype of what people think, quote, disabled person should be, act like, look like, you name it. It's also another pressure, and that's why, one of the things that, I love doing it, and I'm a part of, for organizations that are looking to change that on multiple levels. So, yeah.
Oh gosh, I love everything you just said because it reminds me constantly. Folks are always like, "Man, you're not disabled," and I'm like, "Okay, let me ask my metal legs, my
Mhm.
microprocessor knee, my umpteen medications, my umpteen and a half doctors, my wheelchair, my walker, my crutches, my," and they're like, "Well, okay, maybe you're a little disabled, but you're not really disabled." And what I think that they're trying to make the distinction between is that I have a very strong personality and I'm a doer, even if my lupus keeps me from doing more than I would like to do. And they associate disability with like weakness or inability or I can't or I
Right.
won't. It's just like, wait a minute, no. Some of the disabled folks I know are the baddest bitches in the land, you included. So it's like, why are we trying to make it so what? I probably question asked, question answered. Like, why are we trying to make it so that we look at disability as a weakness, as a, oh, you can't do this, that, and the third, when really disability, it just has to do with like access to things
Yeah.
and access to like life and our basic needs. And like if the world wasn't as inaccessible as it is, it would be much easier for me to function in it. And by definition, I would be just a smidge less disabled because of that. But I'd still have my
Mm.
metal legs, I'd still have the lupus, I'd still have my medication, I'd still have all my I call myself a Barbie because I have my Barbie accessories. Like, I've got all my accessories and so it's just like it's
Mhm.
and then also I recognize that like there's some people who there's like a weird hierarchy in our community of like people's disabilities who are seen but some who aren't. And I've encountered that so much with like folks who, especially in the chronic illness world, it took me from like 14 to 32.
Mhm.
You couldn't tell that I had anything. And the folks in the lupus community were like, we don't call ourselves disabled, even though most of us had walkers while we were coming into the meetings. And I'm just like, so what do we do to like break down these barriers? Because non-disabled people look at us all the same. So there are no hierarchies in their minds when it comes to like identifying us. So like what do we do to break down some of these weird, very strange walls and divisions between us in our community?
Yeah, and it's weird because usually when we're talking about ableism, we're talking about the ableism of people who don't have disabilities. And I think part of it is that even education within, educate. And by that, I mean that we all have different lived experiences, and that it is important to, one, recognize that. I have had people who have really had a struggle of trying to understand someone. And I mean this on all different levels. You can think of intersections of race, gender, you name it. But I sometimes can be a Pollyanna in the sense that it's like literally, that the old saying, "Can't we all get along?" And I think part of it is, and I can only speak for myself. I know the difference of experiences when I'm with someone who has an apparent disability. The way they are talked to makes me want to scream. And I did once take someone aside because I actually knew them, and we had a talk, and they hadn't even realized how they were reacting. you know. And then you have those. It kind of reminds me sometime of junior high, those cliques, and you get into those cliques, those are your people. And I think sometimes we forget, once again, expand your mind, you know, of all the possibilities, you know, and especially for the end goal as people with disabilities, we're fighting for some of the same things, you know? It's like so often you hear justice, rights, and inclusion, but who's included? Are we actually creating our own barriers at times? There are so many people I have respect for on this work. But one thing I also want to go back because when we were talking, one of the things, and I mentioned slavery and disability, but also I didn't talk about the history of immigration and disabled immigrants trying to come into this country. And often were rejected simply because they had a disability. So it's not like what we're talking about is new, but it's a little frustrating at times where we're having those conversations. But it's also good to have them because I truly believe that, I'm hoping it's going to be in my lifetime, that we see so many changes in the way that we operate. You know, people always tell me, like, don't say your age. And I tell people because for me, every year I've been on this earth, it's a learning experience. So next year I turn 60. I'm one of those people too that I was diagnosed with something else not long ago. You can also age into a disability, you know? That was one I was not expecting at all. But it is part of it. So.
Well, heck yeah, for 60. Woohoo! Yes.
I keep saying for that one because I'm turning 60 and my sister, who is 10 years older, will be 70 next year. And so the theme for my birthday is around Star Trek because I'm a big Star Trek fan. And I was born in June and Star Trek debuted in September of 1966. So it just seems
nice.
Something, you know, I love when I can find things to bring me that joy.
I love that so much. Are you going to dress up as a Star Trek character for your birthday?
Yes, but I haven't decided who yet. Yeah, like I literally, oh, there, I can't quite reach them from here, but I have up there 2 Star Trek things. One has like a graphic of all of the Star Treks, and then the other one is for Star Trek and being in 1996, and it actually was a gift to me of things that happened the year I was born, and Star Trek was one of them. So yeah,
I love that so much.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, girl, you killed it for almost 60. Check you out. Damn. All right. Look.
Yeah, I'm actually very blessed because, like I said, there were 6 of us, and my older sister died at 48 from complications from multiple sclerosis in 2003. And then, you know, my mom died Thanksgiving Day, 1999 at the age of 63. So I do count my blessings, you know. Do I have moments where I'm like, wow, you know, life is tough, but I always remember like what they went through and the importance of picking myself up when I'm down. And it's a struggle, a huge struggle.
No, I feel you on that. When my father passed at 40, and when I turned 40, I started counting the days until I turned 41. And I know it was a little morbid, but after I turned 41, I was like, whoa, I outlived my dad. Whoa.
It is not,
that was so
it's not morbid actually.
it was heavy for me.
Yeah. I say that because 48, when I passed 48, and now it's like I got 3 more years, you know, if God willing, you know? Yeah. But it's like, for you, was it part of that, you know, losing your dad at such a young age? How did you feel after? Like, was there any relief that you had passed the age that he died?
It was both relief but also, like, I'm gonna be honest, I felt a little bit of guilt. I was like, "Oh, here I am living, and he didn't get to
Mhm.
live the rest of his life, and 26 years has passed, and he could have lived so much more if he wasn't stressed out and eating McDonald's and working a few jobs and had these divorces under his belt and all this stress." Like, he was literally chasing the American dream so hard that it killed him. And
Um,
I, really, it really paused me for a moment. And I was like, okay. And now that I'm halfway out of 41 and I'll be 42 next April, I'm kind of like,
oh.
all right, let me figure out what, like, yes, I turned 41. I'm older than my dad was, and my brother just turned 40, and he's a very emotional Cancer, and he's the
Mhm.
crier. I'm not so much the crier. And my sister
Okay,
doesn't
I'm
know.
more like your brother then, because
Yeah,
yeah, people say I have too much empathy. It leads to me crying. I
I
don't know
have
how you
so
can have
much
too much
empathy.
empathy.
I have a lot, but my dad wanted a boy first, but he got me. And so he made me extra hardcore. And folks are always like, "Damn, man, why are you acting so like masculine?" I'm like, listen, because my dad wanted a boy, he got me instead. And so he made me extra tough, even though I like pretty dresses and earrings. So there you go, you're welcome. But like, no, it's like it's one of those things with like, and then my brother came along, so he was like, "Well, two boys," and I'm like, "But I'm a girl." Like, I like being a girl, like whatever. Anyway, so like it's one of those things that like I just think about, like, since my dad's not here anymore, and I recognize he, I feel like I've dreamed about him a couple times. I feel like he's up above, like, as one of my biggest cheerleaders and like rooting for me and also like shaking his finger at me, being like, "What you doing?" Like all those things. He was like, "You are way too Americanized," and I'm just like, "But didn't you want me to be Americanized?" He's like, "No, I want to be Americanized. You got to do it." I was like, "Okay, these are weird
Oh.
rules, but whatever." But this was me at 14. I mean, you remember what it was like with your dad at 14, and
Oh
so
yeah.
that was my dad only got the teenage version of me. He didn't get the more evolved, healed, sort of, educated, womanly version of me, which
Hmm.
is a bit different from the child version of me. So yeah, so I think that, I think about my dad a lot, and I think that he would be happy with where I'm at in my life, and recognize that like a lot of wild things, like my lupus showed up before I turned 14, but
Oh
in
wow.
very, very, like, it was just very like almost like a whisper of it, because I had had so many deaths in my family from when I was 11 up until 14, and all that stuff was so stressful, with all these different deaths, and then my dad dying. My rheumatologists think that that's what was the catalyst that drove the lupus home, because that's when it really showed up and started to really affect my body.
Mhm.
But I still look at it sort of like a blessing that I hate that my father had to die, but like it was sort of like a blessing in disguise, because I think that I needed to go through all of these different things in my life. Like you said, even though it was hard and difficult, and sometimes you didn't know if you were going to survive or not, but I am still here and you're still here. And so I look at it like, okay, you know what? Maybe I had to go through the fire kind of like a phoenix and rise from the ashes. And I feel like I've done that umpteen times. And it's like, damn, universe. Okay, I know. You want to send me lessons, but like, does it have to be all the lessons all at the same time? Like, it could just ease off just a little bit. So that's how it feels sometimes. But I do miss my dad.
I
I
can
do miss
relate. I
my dad.
can relate.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things that it's just like, okay, I know you're looking out for me, but also like, damn, son. And the sun is the universe. Damn, sun to the universe. Like what? So
Mhm.
it's both those things all at the same time, which is a hilarious place to be. Um, so I guess staying on the humor kick, like what
Mhm.
what what are some of the things that you do to like make you happy and bring you joy that you love to do in your life?
Oh, yeah. Oh. reading would be big time. So much so that a couple years ago when I bought my first home because I needed a place, a different place to care for my father. And the one thing I did want was a staircase. So, and that staircase goes to a loft. And so for each of the risers, I have on there, and actually, I think I still have it on my LinkedIn page, that looks at all of my favorite books. And, I have hundreds of favorite books, but I only have 15 risers. So, and I did 14 books and one play. Jitney by August Wilson is by far my favorite play ever. I actually have all of August Wilson's plays. Yeah, that gives me so much joy. And then on the side, I had picture frames with one side going up the stairs with biographies, and the other, some of my other favorite books. So, instead of a living room, I turned mine into a library. It is just, yeah,
I love that
yeah,
so much. Oh my God. Like that
yeah,
reminds me when I had my old apartment in Brooklyn, I had it was probably like probably 20, 30 feet. I went and got these like wood slabs from one of the one of the construction spots. They gave me these thin wood slabs. They gave me like 5 of them, and I just had someone hammer them on the wall, and I just
uh-huh,
put a whole bunch of books. I had, I don't know, maybe like 500 books there, and I had to give them all away when I moved in with my boyfriend, now husband, because he had a teeny tiny apartment in the Bronx, and that broke my heart so much. Now we have
uh,
2 tiny tiny bookcases. That's it, and I'm like, oh. Boo.
you
So I'm
know,
living vicariously through you and your staircase of books and your whole living area of library loveliness. That's wonderful.
and also, and some of those books, it's great because, when I became my dad's caregiver, he had, of course, all of his books. And then some are like from his sisters and stuff. And then some of them have notes in it. And it's been, it was so great because at one point after he passed, I just went through all the books again and was looking at like notes saying like, Happy Father's Day, Happy Mother's Day, or, these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, like those type of moments. And then the other thing that brings me joy, and it's also a stress reliever for me, is running. Love to run. And I'll tell you, there was a point where I had such an awful job. It was awful. Um, uh, to the point where people were quitting left and right, like we're like, and I had literally been there for about a month when I realized the chaos. But I say that to say because then I started running even more. So I've done 16 marathons, but a majority was within a certain period, including like a back-to-back weekends, of doing marathons. And I always thought people were like, why do you want to do that? And people always say like, well, what made you start a marathon? I said, well, actually, my younger brother like encouraged me to get more active. I was like 36 at the time, and I decided before I was 40, I was going to run a marathon. And I lived in New York, so I ran the New York City Marathon in memory of my mom and my sister. And another thing that, oh my gosh, one of the things, I had done it a little when I lived in Harlem was I would do hot yoga and stuff. And then and that's been so long ago. I haven't lived in New York since 2014. But being able now, I've been doing yoga. I actually experienced my first sound bath. It was actually at the 2025 Unity Summit. They had so many great things to do around our well-being that were just fabulous. And I at least did 3 of them. And so now that's like a really big part of me too now. In fact, I invited my sister to the yoga studio here so she could experience the sound bath experience. And it's different depending on who's teaching that. But yeah. And then what else brings me joy? family. Uh, in particularly, my brothers and sisters. Like I said, there were 6 of us. Now there's 5 of us. Do we also get frustrated at each other? Oh, yes, for sure. you know. But, one of the things our mother taught us was if you face adversity, you guys come together. And so I always know I can count on my siblings. So, but yeah, it's like, and that's, the other thing too, and I'm glad you talk about joy. It's so often that we get caught up on everything else. We get caught up on the bad parts of life, you know, in finding ways to bring. And, I'm starting to learn to like, there's Gail, all of her personal stuff, and there's Gail who's worked for 37 years for all these different organizations, and I'm just like, okay, it's good because I have so many different, great memories and stuff of that. I'll tell you one thing because people have told me I need to write a book on this one. So I was once at an event and we were told to introduce ourselves without saying what we did and then what was something unique about us. And so I said, I was once knocked down by George Clooney, touched by Michael Jackson, and hugged by President Clinton. There's one other person I no longer include in that saying, but I'm just saying it was just like those experiences. Michael Jackson, I was the kid who oh my gosh, I had my, in high school stuff, I had my Michael Jackson poster, the one with the yellow vest, things like that. So I also remember kind of like the good and bad of life itself. And then those moments that were unexpected. So, and the George Clooney one was when I was in sports, when I worked for the Magic. So, yeah.
And the Bill Clinton one?
When I worked for the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, which is a fabulous foundation, and they do great work.
Wonderful. That's so you just made me feel so your joy just like coming off coming up the screen all the way from Florida back up to New York.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
beautiful.
I am loving talking to you because today was a day that I needed a conversation and I needed this joyous moment. So thank you.
Heck yeah, I'm all about it. That's wonderful. So you've talked about all the different things and all the different roles you've had. 37 years is an amazing accomplishment of a career and a journey. So freaking clap for that. But also like, so what has been sort of like something that you loved? Because with work and with capitalism, sometimes it's like so like, oh, I gotta have a job to survive and like make money to live. Oh, jeez, what the heck? But like, I like it also when we find whether it's a moment or whether it's longer of something that you enjoy. So a job that's not just a job. Like it doesn't feel like a job because
Mhm.
it's your passion and it's something that makes you like I I still have moments where I feel like that about organizing, but organizing used to make me feel that kind of that joy and that passion and that happiness. Like I felt the fire like bubbling up inside of me, and I was like, "Ooh, yeah, love it." So,
Yeah.
what is it about the work that you've been doing over the years that you love so much that you enjoy, and how do you think other people can find those kinds of joyful things in the work that they're doing as well?
Yeah, I think it's one, I think also is not setting your expectations too high that your travel throughout your career is going to be all joyous and you're going to find that match of personal and professional. I look at the different sectors I worked in. I remember when I was hired by the Orlando Magic. That was brought such joy to me because big sports fanatic, you know. I have been a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, moving to football for now 52 years. Started at the age of 7. My older sister Kim was a big influence on that, and that was great. because I got to work for the Orlando Magic and then moved to New York to work there. And I did WNBA and NBA. Oh my God, one of the things that both brought me joy and a little frustration was working on the first WNBA All-Star game, because there were a lot. There were like 17 unions, if I remember correctly, that you have to work with for Madison Square Garden. But actually seeing the joy of others, from the players, from the fans, and that experience, when I look at when I first entered the philanthropic sector, and working for the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, as their first communications person, and loving the work, that was really special. And then when I moved over to the work that I do now, as a person with a non-apparent disability and yes, chronic illnesses, someone recently asked me when I was at a conference in September, it's like, Gail, you look so happy, And at that moment, I was so joyous, because it was like, yeah, because I'm doing something that I both love and that is personal to me. And I think that's important, even when I was with the San Francisco Foundation, and their work around racial equity, being able to talk about that, being able to look from a lived experience, was really important. And then, like I said, I've had the opposites, of the one I told you that made me run all those marathons. It really wasn't until they realized some things that were happening, particularly for a certain gender and race, that anything was even, addressed. But you know what? I want to end on a joyous note. So, because that's the thing, joy, 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 And some of the things is, don't put all your expectations on your joy coming from your career, and that, I think that, and people, like, you think of the things you don't learn when you come out of school or whatever, and, you get your first job, and you have all these expectations, and I always admire the people who can kind of break that chain literally and say, this is work. This is my personal life. And so, yeah, when I meet people like that, I get excited. I think you're talking about another moment of joy. It's like, okay, and I think for me, it's part of, my long, long career of working, that, it's been in environments where self-care is part of our journey, so that I feel more comfortable, and that I can have those, like, just joyous moments, of those moments where, when you're speaking to someone, or you've created an event, or whatever the work it is that you're doing, your joy comes from seeing their happiness, and I think that is just so, so important. Or making someone smile, someone's down. I had someone pick me up today, and it was just like, wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because we all have those moments. No one's going to go through the day like, whoa, everything's fine. That's not life. You're going to have those ebb and flows every day, And then if you add in some of the things that some of us suffer from, it's not that easy, but you have to find a way that says, this moment, I am going to think about joy. And if that takes walking around my neighborhood, my mom was alive, I'd call her up, especially when I was young, and Jobs was like, Mom, and then I'd tell her what was going on at work, and she would say, just take yourself, go outside, walk around, and just literally calm yourself down, and that was a technique. I've also recently learned from someone, when you have this moment, and I'm sure maybe it'll help some other people like it helped me, but they said, embrace yourself. You can close your eyes, you can take a deep breath, but yeah, take that moment for yourself, you know? Yeah. So, but yeah, I've so enjoyed speaking with you.
Oh God, this has been so wonderful. And I just loved all the things you just shared about joy. First of all, I want to get more details about you working for the WNBA because that sounds so next level cool
I have
and
a
so
colleague who's
amazing.
I have a colleague, actually two colleagues that are big WNBA fans.
I've been
So
to a few games. They were
yeah.
awesome. And I just love that. I just want to say to y'all, I love that. I love that so much. So you
Yeah,
ever
I
want
have
some?
my actually right, and I'm looking at it now. So the first All-Star game for the WNBA, I can see my autograph ball, and then when I worked for the Magic, and
No.
those are some things like I always have things too. Like
Mm.
as I'm talking to you, right across from me is it's a picture, and it is of a young Black girl, and her hair is in waves, and she has a book, you know, because those moments where I need it, there is right across from me a look at one of the most joyous things in my life is reading. Then I look at another, which was a gift from a friend in New Zealand who knows that I am probably the biggest Wakanda fan. And they created, they had created an illustration of me as a Dora Majali. And it's just like, so those are the moments too. So when you talk about joy too, for those of us, no matter in the workplace itself, or if you're virtual like some of us, you know, and you're on Zoom all the time, I put things that hang across from me that remind me of joy. So, but yeah.
I love that so much. And that's just a reminder that you can literally find joy in so many different things. And it doesn't have to be you going out and doing something specific. You can just look at the art on your wall. Be reminded of that. Be reminded of the memories that you have. Be reminded of the books that you love. I've been painting a lot lately, and I've got my
Oh, cool.
paintings right around, and I've been doing all kinds of art and
Have
stuff,
you
and it
always
makes me.
painted? Or
Oh
is this
yeah,
something
since I
new?
was a
Okay.
teenager, and
Oh,
I
wow.
got back up on it. And I've been doing art shows and doing my photography and writing and doing all that. And I've got a couple of performances coming up next week, and that makes me really happy. I just have so much
Oh,
joy
wow.
from that. So that's a reminder, y'all. Do things that make you happy. Do things that make you feel joyous because life is so short. Like when I think about when I was a little kid, it feels like it was just a second ago. And now here I am, a grown ass woman with a husband and a freaking, bills and life and things to pay for and deal with and all that. But it was just a second ago. And in a second, I'll be in my 60s. And then I won't be here anymore after. So be happy. Live in
Yeah.
your moments of joy because no one can be joyful or happy for you. You have to find your happiness and your joy with yourself. And so thank you so much, Gail, for that lesson because that reminds us that like even if you have a chronic illness, even if you have things going on with work or with school or with life, that you can still find these moments and these pockets of joy and they will help you to get out of the darkness. And there's always going to be some light on the other side. So seek out that light, seek out that joy and hold on to it for dear life because it will help you. It will help you for real. So thank you for that reminder, Gail, because that's a solid, beautiful reminder.
Thank you very, very
And
much.
absolutely. Okay, so the last question, well, I guess two last questions. So if you could change anything about the world, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's a huge one. Um, oh, gosh, it would be to break down barriers. And by breaking down barriers, I think there's so much destruction, confusion, battles that are often taken from misunderstandings, way people were raised. Um, I've never understood like the concept of hating someone. Um, and I realized too, going back to Pollyanna, you know, and then if I looked at my imaginary world of Wakanda, that's what the world would look like to me.
I love that so much. I'd also go live in Wakanda, like straight up.
And when it first came out, I went to see it like just 3 times that day alone. And I lived in San Francisco then. I like took the
That's
day off,
awesome. I
started with the
thought
early
three
morning
separate
show and
times,
kept
but
going.
three times in a day. Ooh, that's like a good like 12 hours of movie all in a wow. That's what's up. I love that though. That's dedication, yo. That's wonderful. Okay, so the last question is
Mhm.
do you have what do you have do you have anything coming up that you are looking forward to, whether it's the rest of this year or into next year?
What do I have coming up? Um, Christmas for sure. I have one of the largest collections of Black Santa. I'll pull one for you as I step off camera. This is just one. I don't know. Something about it reminds me of my dad, so I keep this one in my
Oh
office.
my gosh. No, I love it so much. I
But
love
the
it.
thing is, and I also have like huge ones. One that was so probably about a little taller than I am, so about maybe I'm 5'4", so like 5'6", 5'7", whatever. And the thing that was most hilarious was that when I first got it, like my sister or my dad, we'd wake up at night, and it was like towards the entrance, and we'd forget, and all of a sudden that panic mode was like, someone's in the house. And then remembering it was just the giant Santa. And so Christmas was really special for my mom. So a couple of years ago, I saw on Facebook a Black Santa lovers page. And I just started getting into it. And then I started like collecting. And then it became like more collecting. And when my whole family was gathered here, last year, as we paid our final respects to our father, grandfather, great grandfather, and everything, I have these Santas that are on top of my like the kitchen, so they're really big, and they look down and stuff. And it's funny because for some people it makes them just laugh, and then it's just like, do you have any more hiding around? And I was like, yeah, just a couple. But yeah.
You
So.
don't know this about me, but I love Christmas so much. It is my favorite holiday. And literally the day after Thanksgiving until Three Kings is over. So January 6th. So from the end of Thanksgiving to January 6th, I'm playing nothing but Christmas music. And I annoy the heck out of people. They're like, okay, it's over. It's over.
Okay.
No, it's not over. It's over
So
when Three Kings
yeah,
is over. January 6th. Anyway,
yeah.
I love
I should confess, I started several weeks ago on stuff like my decorating. I haven't gone to my Christmas music yet. I'm still like playing some other things that like keep my sister and I like decorating the house and stuff. But yeah.
I love that so much. And when people are like, "You like Christmas?" and I'm just like, "Yes, I like Christmas. Why can't I be festive about a holiday, man?"
Yeah, yeah, it
I
is. And
love that
then
so
plus, I still have, my nieces and nephews. They're old
much.
children, old. They wouldn't appreciate me calling them old. And they are, in fact, my oldest nephew's 13 years younger than I am. And but seeing their children, you know, and it's just, when you're talking to like one of my great nieces, and one is going to 5 and the other one's like 13 and stuff, and my great nephews too, just seeing like how they experience it, or like one of my neighbors who is one of the most precious um 6-year-olds you'll ever meet, and just that joy is how holidays come around, you know. So yeah.
No, I love so much being around my nieces and nephews because my oldest niece, she's actually going to turn 13 on Saturday, and
Oh,
then the middle one is 10, and then the youngest one is 8. and watching them grow up, especially with Christmas, and just seeing them how excited they were. And these kids are so freaking adorable. Even as they get older, I'm probably gonna hate that auntie's calling them adorable. So what? Get over it. You're cute as hell. Or what can I do? But I love seeing their joy, and every time I
Yeah.
hang out with them, I'm reminded of that childhood joy. And it's not joy for anything. It's just joy for being happy. It's just, oh, I'm alive.
Mhm.
I'm sitting here alive. I'm happy. I want to play. I
Yeah.
want to dance. I want to sing. I want to run. I want to do. And it's just because. And I love that childhood. Like I could just do it and be happy and do it. And
Yeah.
I wish that for every single adult out there to have that same kind of like child joy just to be. So you just reminded me of that. And I'll be
Yeah,
over
I
there.
think sometimes we forget that as we get older. I mean, like even some of the things like, like I read, it's like, that's a children's book.
And
Or, just that moment. I think it's
mhm,
fun just to let go. I think sometimes there's such a hierarchy in life and work, and yeah, take a moment. Take a moment.
mhm, absolutely take a moment. Well, Gail, holy moly guacamole. You are such a ball of light. And I just thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you because you reminded me that there are so many things about life to celebrate and to be
Oh,
happy
yeah.
about, and to just like sit in that happiness and that wonder and that joy and that just like that warm good like fresh cookie feeling like and also that hug thing, yeah, y'all. If you hug yourself for 20 whole seconds, what it does is replicate when you were in the womb, and it reminds you of being in that fetal position, which calms down your whole system, calms down your body, and is healing for you. So hug yourself for 20 whole seconds, y'all, and it will make you feel so much better. Just go on, give yourself a nice good
Yeah.
hug yourself. So I'm gonna have your bio in the show notes. Is there any way if people want to reach out to you, can they?
Yeah, LinkedIn's always the best way to connect with me.
All right. Hit Gail up on LinkedIn. And you were so wonderful to have. So I hope you come back again because I'd love to have a whole nother conversation. To Gail 2.0. So yeah,
Well,
so
thank
thank you
you for
so
making
much.
this a fun experience. I really appreciate it.
Of
Um,
course.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all, and thank you, Gail. And I will see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.